Maybe a little, yeah. Thank you. Is everybody's phone off? If you're not absolutely positive, check it. Welcome, everybody. We will start with a guided meditation. As usual, you can ignore every instruction in the guided meditation and just do whatever your favorite practice is. However, remain perfectly still and perfectly silent while doing whatever your favorite practice is. So, those are the only parameters. It's a little noisy here to begin with because the heat is on in chilly San Francisco, but hopefully that will turn off in a moment. Can you guys hear me okay back there? I'm trying hard to yell, but I'm sure soon I'll be like, next, breathe in. So if you can't hear the instructions, just make them up. All right, begin by settling into your meditation posture and just feeling the body sensations of sitting. So just feel your feet on the floor, your butt on the chair or cushion, and the basic presence of physicality. Let go of the tensor calculations you're doing in your mind and just drop into embodiment. Just feel. Good. Next, sit up straight, extending your spine upward, allowing awareness to contact sensations up and down the spine, and noticing that when you sit up straight, it opens your belly so you can breathe more deeply and more freely. Good. Next, just begin to contact body sensations of relaxation as you breathe in a pleasant manner. If you want to, you can use the label relaxed and just feel relaxed sensations. If you want to, you can instead label the breath, breathing in, breathing out. And as you're contacting relaxed sensations, remember relaxed sensations are anything, no matter how tiny, no matter how faint, anything that is soft, gentle, relaxed, at ease, quiet, peaceful, those kinds of sensations. Use the label relaxed and just tune into those. But to help you tune into those, you may wish to allow any tension in your eyes or eyelids to release. Again, this is just letting go of voluntary tension. You're not trying to make stuff relax, but if you're tensing it, you're just letting go of that tension. Furthermore, if you have any kind of fixed expression on your face, you're scowling or your jaw is rigidly tight from stress all day or whatever, just see if you can let your expression and your jaw loosen at least enough so that your teeth are not touching. And again, this is not about doing yoga or literally physically stretching, it's just simply letting go of whatever tension is voluntarily let it goable. Notice if you have any residual tension in your arms or hands, like the readiness to do something with your arms and hands, and instead just allow them to become as limp as wet seaweed. Just completely, absolutely bonelessly limp arms and hands. And notice as you do that, that actually there was residual tension there and that you feel like a wave of relaxation passing through you because of relaxing your arms and hands. And then if there's any residual tension in your legs or feet, see if you can allow that to release, let go. And find a more restful place. And noticing again that when you release that, a kind of wave of relaxation passes through the body, so that now you're able to contact relaxed sensations more fully. There's more of the body that is relaxed. If for whatever reason your diaphragm is really tight, see if you can kind of voluntarily just allow that to release. Usually if you're real nervous or real anxious, your diaphragm will just get tighter and tighter. And it's one of the first things you notice loosening when you start to have a really strong deepening of your relaxation and meditation is sort of involuntarily that diaphragm will start to let go. So see if you can help it along by simply releasing it on purpose if possible. Move nice and slow while people are meditating. Thank you, Ray. That's the end of the heater, finally. Good. Now begin by listening to external sound. You're doing bright, crisp, clear, sharp vipassana on external sound. Listening to sounds with as much fine-grained, fine detail, high resolution, sound clarity as possible. Doesn't matter what the sound is. It doesn't matter how long you stay with a particular sound. You can stay with it a long time or a short time. But whatever you're listening to, listen to it very, very clearly with as much attention as you can. Whenever we're doing Vipassana, we want to stay really bright, really crisp, really clear, really sharp. If you find yourself getting kind of muddy or kind of bleary, or your clarity gets really blunted, just do whatever it takes to kind of wake up and energize and come back to bright, crisp, clear listening. And to help you stay on track, to help you stay focused, you can use the label sound, meaning listening to external sound. Allow the external sound to bring you back into presence over and over again. Remember that presence is not magical or some kind of mystical, incomprehensible thing. It is simply being in touch with sensory experience in the present moment. Very clearly, sharply in touch with your experience. See if you can have a neutral relationship with sound. You're not trying to get some sounds or trying to push other sounds away. See if you can let go of liking some sounds more than others, and instead just become sound transparent. Sound does not get impeded in any way by your listening to it. You're simply listening. Good. Now begin listening for the ends of the sounds. So you're hearing the whole sound, but you're following it, following it, following it till it vanishes. And then moving on to the next sound. But just notice that vanishing moment. If it's a sound that gradually, gradually, gradually fades, then you're just going to have to decide when that vanishing moment is. Try to stay absolutely still and silent. Good. Now you can either stay with this, or if you'd like to try something a little more challenging, include internal sound, any sound of verbal thinking. So you're continuing to listen to external sound, but also listening to any internal sound of thinking, as well as continuing to hear the vanishings. Of course, don't think on purpose, just to have something to listen to. Only listen to thoughts that spontaneously arise, but instead of dismissing them like thoughts and just letting it go away, you're actually listening to the sound of it. Just like you listen to the external sound. Same stance. Just something happening. If you find yourself getting lost in the content of the thinking, just come back to contacting the sound of verbal thinking, if there's any happening. If there's not, that's fine. Just listen to external sound. Over and over again, you're bringing yourself back out of fusion with the thinking and instead simply observing it as an activity. Keep noticing the gons, the vanishings of verbal thought. Sentences have endings, phrases have endings, words have endings. Listen to those endings. Now let go of the external sound altogether and focus deeply, clearly, brightly on mental talk. Again, if none is there, that's fine. Just listen very carefully to the silence of the mind. If there is mental talk present, listen very carefully to the non-silence of the mind. It can help if you place your attention physically in the spot where it seems the thought is arising. And then listen very carefully at that spot. To what's arising and passing there with tremendous brightness and crispness and clarity. Now see if you can listen to the thought before it happens. Thoughts bubble up slowly in your mind until you can hear them, but there's a moment before you can hear it where you already know what it is and can listen carefully at that spot. Hearing before it arrives. Good. Now just sit, doing nothing at all. Good. Now let go of that and slowly and gradually allow awareness to contact the sights and sounds of the room around you. And in just a few moments, we'll have the lights back on, so be prepared for that. Thanks, Ray. Good, so we've done variations on this particular meditation for most of the year, in one way or another, contacting external sound in a neutral, non-interfering, equanimous manner, and then attempting to take a similar stance with internal sound or mental talk. With the external sound, we're not trying to get some sounds to happen. I've been on retreats where the retreat center was so quiet and there was nobody fidgeting or continuously moving or whatever they're doing. There was no, birds or airplanes or anything. It was just silent. After a while, when you're practicing this, you just want there to be some sound. And eventually there is. But the point is to just listen to the silence. You can still have perfectly clear hearing of the silence. So you're not trying to get sound, but if sound is arising, then that's great. Doesn't matter how loud it is, how annoying it is, how whatever, you're just listening. I remember one time I was doing a home retreat in Los Angeles where I was living then, and I was doing it for weeks and weeks. I'm meditating in the day, and then one day, because they hadn't consulted my meditation schedule, they, neighboring construction guys set up their radial arm saw underneath the window of the room where I was meditating. And so for the next couple of weeks, there's just continuous radial arm saw noise during the day, like ring, clunk, ring, clunk, but extremely very loud. And so stuff like that, you just, okay, well, I can resist this and get upset and, have a problem with it, or just sit here and let whatever sound is happening happen and listen to it with great clarity and brightness and just be, right? Just be with the sound. That turns out to be hard, but that's the idea. right? So you're not trying to get some, you're not trying to get rid of other sounds, you're just listening, right? And if you want to get real crisp and clear, one of the things you can do is listen for the moment it stops, even for a second. That gets really interesting. And so, you do that with external sound enough, and then you build up some momentum, some clarity, some equanimity. You begin to do it with internal sound. And it helps, like I said, if you kind of locate where it seems like mental talk is rising, where all the bullshit in your mind is bubbling up from, and then you simply listen in the same way. You're not trying to make it happen. If it's silent, listen to the silence. If there's stuff there, you're not trying to make it go away, you just simply listen. No matter how loud, no matter how annoying, no matter how relentlessly repetitive, whatever, you listen carefully. And if you want to go really deep into it, you listen to the moments of vanishing. Blah, 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 right? Blah, 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 blah. There's vanishing moments. Those are interesting. And it also builds your crispness, which I keep saying like Christmas, and clarity. So yeah, and you want to have that same stance. Just like with external sound, you're not really, you don't imagine you're in control of it, it's just happening. You want to have that same stance with internal sound. You're not in control of it, it's just happening. That becomes also really powerful and interesting because we tend to take ownership of mental talk in the mind, right? I am my mental talk in the mind. If it's shitty, evil, horrible thoughts, then I'm a bad person. If it's noisy, chaotic mental talk, then I must be noisy and chaotic, right? We are so identified with the mental talk that its nature becomes our nature in our imagination. But the more that you work with it in this way, the more that you notice that it actually has nothing to do with your identity. The brain is just simply doing what the brain does, right? It's thinking, and it's not an identity issue. It's something that you can just let be and just notice, right? And that's a big relief. It's a big letting go when you can just allow the mind to do its thing. But especially if you're really tightly fused with the content, really involved in the stuff going on in the mind, really believe that the words in there are you, are your identity, it can be hard at first to defuse and just listen, right? Because you're in it. So the idea is get outside it, so to speak, and just listen so that it can do its thing, but you're just here perfectly still, listening. Right? And that little move there can take a while. And one of the ways I found over a long time to make it easier is to do the external sound meditation first. Because it keeps building your awareness not only of clarity of sound, but just noticing that stance of just listening without interfering. So I also mentioned that, your mind kind of already knows what it's going to say, right? You may ask, who's talking to who in there. But of course, we know the answer to that question. That's the narrative mind, just kind of unifying all the last few seconds of whatever's going on in your brain into kind of like a nice package with some words on it to keep all the disparate activity of the different brain centers, which might have really opposite goals in mind. It kind of unifies it all into a story about what's happening, right? And so the narrative mind is going, just trying to make a story out of what's happening. And you can hear that story bubbling up as it's being generated. And what's interesting, maybe you notice this, maybe not, that if you listen carefully enough to the narrative mind before it becomes literally consciously clear as sound, it will just vanish before that ever happens, because it's already been encountered, right? So you're just listening deep into the sort of upwelling of thought, and the thought will typically, not always, but typically just kind of just dissolve before it ever fully coheres. And so what's interesting about that is you're really, really, really digging into the deep mind. You're letting the mind, you're not controlling your thinking, you're not getting in there and getting real rigid and really um, domineering and controlling of every little part, like it must be silent or it must only be good thoughts or whatever, which is this kind of manipulation that's really typical of a lot of meditation, where we're struggling hard to uh, have the mind do something in particular. Instead, you're just letting it happen, but you're paying really, 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 really close attention. And strangely, this uh, this really beautiful dance can occur where the thoughts are actually completely happening, but they're never rising all the way to consciousness. So there's this real sense of like the freedom and naturalness and kind of river-like flowing quality of thoughts. And at the same time, so full thought activity, but at the same time, the mind can seem quite silent. It's very interesting. So questions, comments, reports, stuff about that experience?
I guess I have a comment.
Yes.
It's my first time here. Hey, y'all.
Hi.
My comment is like, I think the guidance through that and like being able to like notice that I'm not in control. Because it's funny you said it. I noticed I wasn't in control of my own thoughts when I realized like everything that was happening out there, I can't control that either.
Yeah.
It's like it's very similar because it's all here anyway.
It's just happening. Yeah. That's the good part, right? That's an insight into thinking, is that we tend to take full ownership of it. So, I'm doing it on purpose, but the more you meditate, the more you realize the brain is just thinking.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know, your heart is beating. And you can just let that happen. It feels good to just relax and let it happen. Yeah, what's your name?
Terrell.
Terrell?
And normally that's like hard for me. It's like the first time, like I didn't really start fidgeting until like 2 minutes before you're like, all right, come back now. So it's like,
Yeah. Good. Awesome. Welcome, Tyrell. So, what else?
I found that in each situation, like one of the two felt like a treat or like a preference. So in the situation where we were listening to external sounds or internal sounds, the internal felt like a treat or a refuge, like being able to listen to thought again, or that's a nice relief, or that's more pleasurable or interesting. And then in the situation of thought or internal sound or internal silence, somehow internal silence started to be the preference or the treat. And I think that was useful to actually start to enjoy that part of silence, because it sort of fed in to my mind's ability to be more silent. The fact that I liked it or had some like affinity towards it. And then the second cool observation was that like listening to the root of the thought sort of felt like empathy or self-empathy. It was more of sort of breathing into a feeling before it became words or thought-like. And it kind of addressed it to the point where it didn't have to turn into thought. It was like, I could feel it in that spot, as you said, of the body or the mind where the root had emerged, and it felt like giving that space due attention so that it didn't become thought, because it was like heard and felt through breath.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is, I think, a kind of kindness or compassion for the mind. The mind works really hard to make everything totally clear, organized, structured, uh, occurring in language. That's not really how the deep mind works, right? So it's a lot more dreamlike, a lot more fluid and lava lampy in its nature. And just allowing it to be that way, just letting it express the way it expresses in this deep flow is very, very, very relaxing and peaceful and kind in a way. And often stuff then does not have to arise, but if it does arise, that's fine too, right? We're not against the arising at all. It's just interesting to be with it in that way. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like because I was with the genesis of the thought, like what you said, know it before it's there. I sort of had the feeling that my mind was only generating these thoughts to let me know. And so because it didn't have to let me know, because I already knew, I mean, this is hard to explain, but
Yeah, the narrative mind,
yeah,
realizes
the
it can
narrative
just
mind.
relax, yeah.
It was kind of woozy. It was kind of like, okay.
It was kind of lava lampy, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, it starts to relax that really rigid structure that
That
it's,
acute listening is.
yep.
Also, did anybody else have like a ringing in their ears? Because when I did that really intense listening to the internal, maybe I have
Tinnitus.
It's the
No,
nada
it's-
sound.
it's
the
the what?
nada, the nada.
nada.
Yeah, which is like the vibratory universe or something, and you can actually hear it.
It was
There were books
yeah,
about that. It's
yeah. It was
really-
like it's
Flutes
going
of Shiva.
in between my ears.
It's like hearing
You
yourself
can
in
actually hear it all the time if you try. You can like hear the nada sound all the time.
We're having an upwelling of Hindu expression in the room tonight from Mimi. Well, I have a large background in Hinduism, so yeah. Yes.
Cool, thank you.
But also, I mean, if we were talking TMI, right, that would be the same as the light that occurs in your mind. As the mind unifies, you also get sounds, right? So as you get more concentrated, sometimes lights just appear because your mind doesn't know how to interpret the seclusion of the senses. As your sense start, as you're focusing inwardly, you start to shut the outward senses down, and then even some of the internal senses down. You're getting more and more on one channel, and as those other senses are kind of turning off, the last thing they do is sort of generate this white noise. So we can think of it as the sound of the universe, the nada Brahma, the divine sound, or just kind of the white noise the mind makes. Either way, yeah, same thing with any lights that appear, right? It's just kind of the last gasp of these sense gates as the mind struggles to interpret very little sense activity, right? And it's pleasant, and then eventually it goes away.
Yeah, like similarly, like I didn't hear a sound, but like every time I like started to kind of come back before the end of it, I just like imagined I was in like a white light, and I could actually feel the heat of like a light on me, like warmer than it is.
Yeah.
Is that something that's already?
That can happen, yeah, especially if you're doing visualization, just like a different technique, but interesting, right? Powerful stuff. I almost had us do a visualization tonight, but I thought you guys might run screaming. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. It was really interesting when I came into the sounds within myself. Yeah, I connected. My heartbeat was an incredible sound, and then Donna Summer came in, and it was great. And I had to do the whole, so letting it happen, when I finally got to the end of the song, it got quiet,
Yeah,
which was really nice to just let that, because I wasn't hearing words, I was hearing music.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the way that we're working, the music comes as mental sound, right? The heartbeat, on the other hand, is external sound. Even though it's in your body, it's still, kind of a physical sound instead of a mental sound, right? So, interesting. Interesting, we can divide these up in different ways, right? Yeah. Which Donna Summer song?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the important question.
I am alive.
As you're hearing your heartbeat. Mimi.
This was a really interesting meditation. I've always liked the thinking about sound and really trying to connect with it in that way. And I've done it here before, and it was very different last time. Tonight, I felt sounds, external sounds with my whole body. It wasn't just isolated to my ear, right, coming into this device that we have. And I felt like they were kind of moving through me, and the vanishing was long after I heard the sound this time. There was like this echo that continued after the sound disappeared. And it was almost like there was this dance of energy when sounds would meet in my body. It was really interesting. And then when we were trying to locate in the brain or in our heads where the thoughts were sort of gurgling up, I felt very specifically activity in my brain, vibrations in my brain in different locations. And then when external sounds were present, I realized that they were also vibrating in the same way that my thoughts were, and they were exactly the same thing.
Sure.
It was really interesting.
It's fascinating, right? The frisson that you're describing is, happens pretty often if you get real, crisp and clear vipassana on anything, even body sensation. You'll get those, when vipassana gets to that place, like fourth vipassana jhana territory, like really on the edge of every uprising of sensation, when it starts to get really crackly, sound travels as waves through the body, like waves of frisson, or certain sensations will cause waves through the body, right? There's a real whole body reaction to everything. It's very kind of wonderful, right? That's good. Yeah, vortices, or, we use a different Latin plural depending. But you can just feel that there's a strong impact on the entire nervous system from every little tiny thing, right? It's super fascinating. And then, the other thing, there's more to say about that, but we'll just wait on that one.
You mean the brain stuff?
Yeah, the brain stuff. I mean, but it relates to the first thing too. I mean, in the long run, whether this is true like neuroscientifically or not, what is definitely true in meditation is, we start out, and I think I explain this every week, but I'll explain it again. When you first start meditating on some kind of, sensory experience like breathing, there's sort of 4 levels. And one is, the first level is that you're thinking about it. So even if you're staying involved in your breathing, really you're kind of thinking about breathing. And that can go on for a while, and eventually, I just keep saying, get into the phenomenology of it, touch the experience, and eventually you start to feel the next level where instead of thinking about it, you're really feeling it. And the feeling of it in the body is primary instead of the kind of narration or thought about it. So you're like stripping away this layer of concept and just starting to get into the actual contact with the sensation. And then as that goes deeper, you get more and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer, high resolution, bright, fine grain, fine detail contact with whatever's arising. Then you start to notice it's moving and changing continuously, and as that part goes deeper, you start to notice that moving and changing continuously is like a bunch of dots or a bunch of waves or whatever. And what's really fascinating about that part is you start to have total synesthesia, because every different sense gate, if it's just turning into this buzzy, wavy, tingly, undulatory, vibratory stuff, well, that's the same as in every sense gate. And so it starts to be very super unclear which sense is arising. You just know there's activity, and eventually it's like there's just one sense, the mind sense. All sensory activity becomes the mind sense, and it's just vibratory. And so it's total unification of mind, right? There's just everything is so deep down in the pre-processing below concepts that it's just this kind of like raw signal. Of course, it's not truly raw signal, but close enough. So eventually all sense experience becomes just activity, one big thing of activity, right? And that activity is arising and passing and arising and passing and arising and passing, and that leads to the fourth level where things just vanish. So, yeah.
It was really
So, yeah.
interesting at the end when you said don't do anything. It was really easy to not do anything. Easier than before. I'm sorry, what did
It
you
was
say,
so
Shelley?
hard for me.
Oh. It was interesting. I really felt like I was truly just watching it all happen.
Yep.
No involvement.
No agenda, yeah,
Yeah.
there you
It's
go.
very easy to do that. Yeah.
Yes, good, yeah.
I had
You can yell if you
I had
don't.
kind of a funny visualization, even though you didn't intend for us to do that. So I was noticing mental sounds arising and passing towards the end, and it turned into kind of a whirring, like a spinning top.
Yep,
And then all of a sudden,
which way was it spinning?
clockwise.
But like in which plane?
Oh, so it was like, okay, so this was the weird visualization. It was like there was a floor at the bottom of my brain, and it was spinning on that, like that.
Mhm.
And it was like covered in mirror, like a disco ball.
Nice, because Donna Summer was playing, yeah. So the unification of the mind fields.
Yeah. And then the skull was also covered in mirrors. So it was a spinning top of mirrors with a room in mirrors, and there was light reflecting all which ways, and that was my visualization.
And that light reflecting in a zillion
Those were
mirrors,
thoughts.
those were thoughts.
Those were thoughts.
And were they then disappearing with the disappearing of the lights, or were they then continuing to arise into auditoriness?
Well, the auditory manifested in the whirring of the spinning of the top. That was all I could really hear.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Excellent, yeah. So, as one of the things is the deep mind, it's very dreamlike, right? So sometimes you just run right into dreams. Not that you're dreaming or asleep or anything, but you're sinking down into sort of the non-rational part of the mind, right? And so visions start to happen. And they can be just fantastically interesting, or they can also start to get very insight rich, right? Or spiritual or whatever.
I kept seeing like when there was like a skateboarder going by and there's somebody in heeled shoes that walked by. Like I started imagining what kind of shoes are those, and then like I saw a skateboarder for some reason. I see like a messenger bag. I keep seeing like I was outside.
Yeah, that's one of the functions of the mind is we're monitoring the environment and trying to make sure we're safe, and we do that by figuring out what's causing the sounds, right? And often that's coming up as pictures. And what's weird is normally most people don't notice the pictures. They're just kind of doing that in the background, but when you start meditating, then the mental images that arise based on external sound get more obvious. Right, so that's fascinating. Yes?
Last week I read a New York Times article talking about a phenomenon called ASMR.
Yeah.
And
What
I
ASMR?
huh?
Do you like ASMR? I'm gonna start opening pieces of paper.
There you go. So I watched these Bob Ross videos for 2 hours. but why I'm talking about that is since then, whenever I focus on the hearing channel, an hour or two per day, I feel that now.
Yeah.
Even walking in the city, or now I feel it just listening to the sounds in the room. So what does it have anything to do with meditation, or is?
I think it's an unclear part of the boundary. So, Uh, there's plenty of AMSR videos that are, it's like unclear whether they're like actually porn or not, you know. But
There's
it's
no
like,
porn right now.
yeah, so it's just, you know, has everyone seen an ASMR video? Essentially, I mean, to put it in the simplest terms, it is videos of people whispering, like they're talking right in your ear. And for a certain percentage of viewers or listeners, they start getting like, again, for song, right? They start getting tingles up and down their spine. And it becomes like super fascinating. Or they totally relax or whatever. Because it's like having someone whisper right in your ear. Now, I'm making the joke about the porn because a lot of them, it's like not just whispering, it's someone like clicking their nails on like paper. And then they have to have really, really well manicured nails. And I don't know, it just gets very strange very fast. But I don't get the response.
Okay,
I don't
totally
get,
get it.
yeah, some people do, and great. I'm just like, wow, these are weird videos. But there's a whole, you know, like internet world, and some of them are like, you know, we're going to just handle stationary, really perfect pieces of paper, stuff like that.
What is AMSR?
Sensory,
Meridian response.
yeah.
What's sensory meridian response?
I feel like the easiest way that I tried to understand it is like goosebumps for the brain
Yeah.
in a way.
Except, yeah, you can get actual goosebumps, right?
The
Whole
whole
upper body.
Yeah.
watch video. Well, there's no video. It's because I make music, so I wanted to work on my panning, which is probably why I was thinking, what kind of shoes are those? Because you sit there, you close your eyes, and it starts, and someone walks in from the room, they're talking, and then someone comes from another side, and then you get to hear everything, but there's no video.
Yeah.
And it's all just panning. So I was like meditating before I even realized I was meditating.
Yeah, nice. That kind of stereo pan meditation is really fun, right? A lot of ASMR is like that also.
It's not PT like, you know, when I talk
PT
about.
is different.
It's different.
Yeah.
What's that?
PT is also body rapture, but it's body rapture caused by intense focus. It's probably, I mean, you know, because you're talking about sound being right in one spot in your ear, maybe the focus gets intense enough that it's like mini PT or something, I don't know. But, you know, PT doesn't feel so much like a little, you know, like that. It's more like, you know, it's kind of intense and big. Yes.
A little related to that comment, it's like sometimes I've heard you talk about like induced states of experience versus like states that come about from intense practice. Like, and so I am curious in how like maybe something like ASMR, like how you can use different tools to induce a state like that rather than through long-term meditative practice.
That's something to explore, right? I mean, there are tools that, I mean, as we get clearer and clearer and clearer about sensory response and stuff, things like that can be really fun and interesting. That's like the consciousness hacking stuff,
Right? Yeah.
right? And so far, most of that stuff is kind of a wash, right? Works a little bit for a little while, and then that's it. But I think we're, you know, we've only been experimenting with this for a short while, so probably in the long run it will get really, really powerful. You know, I remember way long time ago, we, you know, put on these things that were just basically like welding goggles, and inside the welding goggles would be LEDs. It was attached to like a, you know, little controller, and then that's doing all these flashing patterns in the darkness inside the goggles to get into very specific brainwave patterns. And at first that would be really awesome because it's putting you into like an alpha state or a theta state or whatever, alpha theta, And, you know, like you're having uh, either meditative states or kind of like visionary or dreamlike states and stuff. But, you know, the brain gets used to this stuff really fast. And so it'd be the coolest thing in the world for like a week. And then you know, just stops working. So most of the stuff is like that still. Yeah.
Very interesting question about novelty in your meditation practice, and if there's value in that, and how do you know if there isn't value? Like how, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I've noticed that even just like turning my meditation cushion in a different direction from what I'm used to will like add some kind of novel aspect to it that will change my meditation in a positive way, or changing the time of day sometimes, or like doing a different type of practice, just sort of injecting something like that. Is there, what is an indication that novelty isn't good in your meditation practice, or is there?
I don't think there is one. I mean, you want to be able to do the meditation. So, and you know, you want to stay curious, you want to stay engaged, you want to stay playful and loose and open, right? So novelty is great for that because it keeps you engaged and playful and curious. Ooh, what's this? It's why I like to do meditations on not just the breath all the time, not just body sensation all the time, but every different sense modality because it's interesting. And we can really get into a lot of cool, fascinating, powerful, engaging stuff by doing that. So in a way, we're doing more than this, but in a way, we're fighting boredom, right? It's like the tediousness of the exercise can be greatly relieved by trying different stuff. But there is an upper limit, like it's a flow state thing. So there's an upper limit where the novelty is so much it's just too hard to do, right? Or it's like you never get used to doing any exercise, so you're kind of always overwhelmed or whatever. So that would be the only thing. Like let's say you were doing a 45-minute meditation and you changed the direction of your cushion every 10 seconds. That might be too much novelty.
That is very helpful.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
I thought so. I'm gonna just cut that right off, nip that in the bud, and not do that. Yes.
I noticed kind of my nervous system like cycling through a few different strategies to maintain like clarity and concentration. So for an example, like part of it was like mental interpretation of what was happening to just like gain focus onto the sound in greater detail. And then I mean I noticed for like 20 minutes I felt like very like aggressive, like hyper focused flow state. Like I was waiting for like an animal to move or something like that. And I'm wondering if this is just par for the course, or is there any strategy that's like there be dragons, like, and I didn't feel attached, and I was aware that the strategy was happening, but I'm just not sure if that's kind of like how it works.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question correctly, but you're saying like, is it okay to be that intense about being focused?
Well, I mean, I noticed the intensity was like coming through a few different patterns, right? Like it could be very focused on something because of like intellectual curiosity, and I could be highly focused on something from like seething rage, or like I could be highly focused on something because like I'm at the beach and absolutely nothing matters and I can focus on whatever I want. So it seems like my nervous system was kind of like there's like multiple ways of gaining like hyper focus.
Most of that sounds like it falls under the label like trying a little too hard, right? It's like, could you keep that up for day after day after day, like without kind of wearing yourself out? I don't know. It's nice because you're turning up the focus, but remember that it's not just concentration and sensory clarity we're after, it's equanimity. And in fact, out of those three, probably the most important is equanimity. So notice that you're amping up all these feelings to get the concentration and sensory clarity, but that's at the cost of the equanimity. And so it's cool to amp it up like that, right? That's I like doing that, and especially earlier in meditation, I did a lot, and eventually you realize it kind of dead ends because you can't ever relax enough, can't get accepting enough to go deeper. So there's a way to start to just back off on that, and you'll notice you chunk down a level or two because you're allowing instead of pushing. So, again, you can get too allowing, and then everything gets muddy and dark, and in this, you lose the clarity. And so that's the other end. You want to keep it bright and clear, but not push so hard. So that's the dragon. There be a dragon, and it is trying too hard. All right, let's meditate. Great. So who is doing announcements tonight?
I am.
Ray is doing announcements.
Yeah, so as you guys know, we are the San Francisco Dharma Collective. We are entirely student-led, student organized with the generous support of our teachers who bring their knowledge of the Dharma and of mindfulness to share with everyone. We are a volunteer organization. We are 100% by volunteers, and we are funded entirely by donations, 100% by donations. So every dollar that you give directly supports this space and our teachers for being able to offer this to all of us. We have a suggested donation amount of $20 per class, but we never turn away anyone for lack of funds. We also don't have a limit on how much. So you are more than welcome to donate more, including monthly sustaining donors, which really helps us get more generous support from our community. We have amazing classes. We have classes almost every night lined up from both regular teachers and guest teachers. Tomorrow night we have a guest teacher, Mary Stancabbage. I think I said her name right. And she's also leading a day-long sit on Saturday. We have Eric Davis joining us Saturday night with the Psychedelic Sangha. And then on Sunday night we have our very own Michael Owens who will be leading the Sutra study. We're on all the social channels, Instagram, Facebook. We even have a Yelp posting. The biggest way you can help us is help promote us. Bring your friends. Come back. You are the us. This is us. This is it. So thank you very much. And if there's anything I left out, let me know. Genevieve.
Just really quickly, Psychedelic Sangha on Saturday is going to have Mike Crowley as a special speaker, and the topic is the connection between Buddhism and Tantra, and where psychedelics may or may not come into that. So there's a lot of history of Buddhism and Tantric practice that will be brought up, and that should be a really interesting evening. And there'll be a sit as well as that lecture, so come on out.
Will Eric be there also?
Eric will be there as well. Yes, Eric will be facilitating Mike as a guest, and start time is 7:30 on that.
Also in late June, I'm thinking of starting a once-a-month class in here that will go on for like a year. And so far the main topic is a very hardcore meditative exploration of death and dying. So if you're up for that, please, I don't know, how do you want people to vote on that, Genevieve?
Hands in the air.
Hands in the air. Anybody who wants that, who will show up on a Saturday night once a month?
Let's do this.
Awesome. I'm calling that so far Death Sangha. So that's how we will refer to that. So.
Yes, no.
I'd like to remind everyone that before this sit with Michael, there's a meditations workshop that just started, and this is the second day we did it today, and it's ongoing for the next 6 weeks. I highly recommend it with Todd.
Thank you. Yes, the intro to mindfulness. Right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for coming. Come on back next week. Bring your friends.